Good morning, everyone. So welcome back to the API Days Hong Kong Day 2. Really thanks for your joining. So we know that in Hong Kong we have a Typhoon Signal. We heard that it's now Typhoon Signal 3. Hope that you are maybe enjoy our videos at home, or maybe you are traveling or back to the office. Just stay safe. So hope that we can also share some good API updates and trends to you in the remaining days. So let me do a quick introduction about API Days, just in case you haven't catch up yesterday. These 2 days is API Days Hong Kong. Okay, as said, our event is actually a virtual event. We allow keep going, and all of our speakers is ready to share the good topics. Just a bit of API Days. As you may know, API is helping to connect the system behind different interfaces. We want to connect the people behind, so that this is the people driving the API and make it meaningful. So that's why we want to gather everyone together in different regions, including Hong Kong. This is a series of digital events. So Hong Kong is in August, and we are also having another one in Australia next month. So if you're interested, you can also join in. And some of the event is now in hybrid or physical event. So if you are interested, you can also find there and then network with the API expert together. Some numbers with the hard work from the team. This is actually the 10 years anniversary for our global conferences. For Hong Kong, it's the third year. We have already won 80 plus event here, and in our community, we have more than 300,000 people and involved 20,000 company in our events, and then connect a lot of experts together. In API Days, we are also doing a few initiatives, including the state of API industry. In the second keynote, we also invite the founder of API Days Global Conference to talk about the API landscape. Hope you can understand better about what is happening outside Hong Kong as well. So you can take a quick look on the thousands of toolings platform involving in the following screen, the URL. Feel free to go there to check that. Besides the industry report, we also work together with different industry experts to share the thought leadership in the platform called APIscene. If you are interested, you can also reach us out and then contribute your ideas. We do also encourage more diversity in the API space. So we know that a lot of people working in engineering is actually male. So we are also encouraging different female women joining our community as well, and then makes them have more exposure to talk in event like us. Okay, I talk a bit about the API Days global event, and then he come back to the Hong Kong one. I am quite lucky that I am the organizer of the API Days Hong Kong for 3 years, and I still recall that back to 3 years ago, we are still able to do some hybrid event like in the photos, and then we become the largest vendor neutral API conference in Hong Kong, and with a lot of help from the speakers, sponsors, we have a lot of leading companies, speakers join together and focus on the content sharing so that we can enable better education and evangelize the API economy. So what you are expecting, in these 3 years, I can share, this is our observation what's happening in the Hong Kong API community. So thanks for the regional push. There are some governing regulations pushing, for example, the Open API framework for the banking industry for 3 years. And this year, we are also hearing, talking about the insurance sector. They are also interested to push for the Open API innovations. It aroused quite a lot of public awareness and also interest from traditional enterprise, so that they are more open to find potential collaboration opportunity with different people. And in the past, they may be a bit concerned of collaboration because they are worrying how their data will be used, whether they can get the integrity right and without affecting their brand. So in these 2 to 3 years, we can see the market is more open, and then a lot of collaboration is forming even within our API community. And I can also see that a lot of leaders now better understand the Open API is actually a way to enable the acceleration of collaboration. This is actually the how, but the more important is the actual context itself. So you need to with the context and then scale with the Open API. So we can see more and more mature use case happening. Just like in day one, we have a lot of bank and insurance to talk about how they do right now. And with the collaborations, we can also see the platform economy is now shaping. For example, bank or enterprise now trying to sit behind and empower a lot of different people, brand, so that they will become the platform that work with others. And then we leverage the best of the both worlds, including maybe the partners, industry, influence, or knowledge. And now, as a developers, we are also very excited that we are now in the center of the API first transformation, and we can see some of the business strategy with involving the API first transformation is now having some influence from the technical team to the business team, so that it can make more agile and then being more modern to work together. Some of the companies even have a very complete IT or technical transformation inside, including some of the banks. So in these 2 days, we hope that what I share, you can get the answer or some of the idea from our leading expert in these 2 days. We still have about 20 per section today, and today our section will more on the data API, how to use the data, how to manage the data and expose them as an API in a proper and manageable manner. We also will be visiting the API first design, how to monetize API product, how to design API product, and we will also talk about the API first challenges, including security concern, the consent concerns, and last but not least, we will also have the developer experience section, how we engage developers as their first focal point, and how you can do a buy-in from them to influence adoption inside a company. So I will do a very quick introduction on the conference platform today, just in case this is new to you. So in the platform, you can see there's some tab in the chat section, etc. Feel free to type your questions. You can send private chat, etc., so that our MC can see that and then help to facilitate some of the questions. And then if you are going to different state, make sure you pick the correct one. Today we have 2 tracks. One is for the main track. For example, in the second segment, we have the data and API in the first track, and then the API first challenge in the second track. Make sure you pick the correct one. And then the workshop is actually concluded yesterday, so today we don't have any workshop. But if you want to understand maybe how our sponsor is working, how our community partner is working, feel free to go to the partner village as well. And then we are also running a campaign like a treasure hunt, so you can also have a chance to win a $4,000 gift card. Okay, so once again, we want to thank our sponsors, including our Gold Sponsor Conference. Without them, we cannot make this event happen in this scale. And then we also want to thanks for AWS and New Relic as a silver sponsor. They also send some good speaker to us and then make this event more and more modern and matures. And we are also working with different community partners in Hong Kong, including the Hong Kong Computer Society, the Hong Kong Science Park Staff Associations, and our Open API Hub communities. So we are going to run different kind of event in the next few months as well, besides the major API Days conference. Okay, so this is the hashtag. If you have any interesting thoughts or screen, you can feel free to use this hashtag to share in LinkedIn or Twitter. Okay, so I'm not trying to talk too much. So this morning we have 2 major keynotes. One, we are very glad to invite Dr. To Tram. He is the Associate Professor of Practice in Innovation and Technology in CUHK Business School. He is an expert in data and platform. So we will have him to share about what is the critical role in data under the platform economy. And in the second keynote, we also glad to have the founder of API Days Conference, Maddie, to share about the API landscape in a global perspective. Okay, so let me pass the time to Dr. To Tram. So, okay.
Thank
Hello.
you, Patrick. Hello,
can
you
you
hear
hear
me?
me well? It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, loud and
Yes, it's
clear.
fine.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
let's see your
So,
slide, whether it is showing properly. Okay.
is it all right?
Yep,
Everybody
all
can
good.
see it?
Yep,
All
all good.
good. Okay, thank
So
you.
I pass the time to you.
Good. Thank you, Patrick. Good morning to all of you. If you're in Hong Kong, so that's good because even the weather is bad outside, so we can still have a very good discussion today in the morning. If you are outside of Hong Kong, hopefully you have a sunny day or sunny evening. So let's talk about a very important topic around data. So data, I think, is the oil and soil and electricity of every company in the world. but how does it support a platform economy? So this is things that I will going to talk about in the next 20 or 25 minutes. So thank you for Patrick's invitation, and also for all the effort Patrick and his team, and also API Days teams to make it happen today. Thank you. All right, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Toa Cham. I'm, as Patrick said, I'm a professor in Chinese University of Hong Kong Business School, but also I run several business, mainly on AI and big data. So this is my life today. But before that, I actually worked for some bigger company like Cyberport, HSBC, IBM, you name it. It's all around data. So I would say participate in the data economy since day one. When we talk about Excel and the relational database, and then come to data warehouse, business intelligence, now AI and big data. Of course, everything out there is very important to have API, because this is the theme of today, but also it's very important to connecting all the dots and create values for our customers and companies. So that is something, the crossover about AI and data, and the business model that I'm going to talk about is a platform, right? So part of my job is as a professor and also the founder and chairman of a few startups. But also I'm doing quite a lot of advisories and also mentorship for many organizations, particularly in the innovation technology area. Of course, Cyberport Science Park, but also others that you can see. So I'm also helping quite a lot of enterprise to doing the digital transformation. So that's about me. And there's some of the pictures, probably you have seen me before in Hong Kong or maybe somewhere around the world. So helping quite a lot of companies and startup in terms of digital transformation. So today I'm going to talk about these platform, right? So everybody now is in the digital economy, but platform, not too many people really know about the power of platform. Platform, I call it, is the killer business model in the digital economy. Killer business model. That means it's dominating, right? Why I call it killer business model? Let me explain a little bit. So most of our company, we are in the traditional industry, right? And we are facing competition not only from our own industry, but actually facing competition from 4 different areas. The first one, the biggest one, is the tech platforms. So we talk about, Alibaba, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Alphabet, all these Tencent and, the JD. So this is all the platforms. They are not a product producers. They are a platform to collaborate with different stakeholders to create values for their customers and also create value for their own companies. Of course, we're also facing other types of competitors, startups. So we talk about fintech startups, we talk about AI startups, we talk about health startups, we talk about retail tech startup. So many, particularly the unicorns, those that make it and becoming bigger. So this is another type of disruptor. The third one is those that are not in your industry, but they're making use of data to cross over to your industry and then disrupt you. For example, Volkswagen right now is doing financial services because they have all the data around their drivers or the customers. So they can collect the dots and then calculate the risk of the drivers, and then they can do insurance and then they can do financing. And the last but not least is same in your industry, but they respond to digital economy, digital transformation faster than you. So those are the 4 types of disruptors, I call it. But today we are focusing on the platform. The first one, in fact, is the biggest disruptor in this decade. So top platforms in the world, you may think about Alibaba, you may think about Amazon, other platform. In fact, it's not only them. If you look at this chart, this is around the whole world, in US, in Europe, in Asia. So we have the big platform, just like I mentioned, but also we have the smaller platform. In fact, when they call smaller, they're not small at all. For example, we talk about Netflix and Uber. Compared to Amazon, they're still small. but they're very big. And in Asia, when we talk about Alibaba and Tencent, they're super big tech platform. But look at all the platform around it, right? For example, in Indonesia, there's a go-to, previously Gojek. In Singapore, we have, Uber-like, for example, Grab. So all these platform is not that small, but compared to the biggest one, but they're all running a platform model. That's why they're so successful. So today I'm going to talk about it and how does it relate to API. There's lots of API around platforms, so we'll talk about it later on. Well, typically Alibaba is an example, right? What is a platform? So is they do not have their own products, right? But how they can make it to become one of the largest company in the world. So what is the magic behind it? It's all about data. It's all about open innovation. It's all about collaboration that Patrick just talked about. And then not just the name of Alibaba. How about the financial return for all these tech platforms? If you look at the market cap, look at revenue, it doesn't mean anything. But you look at the market cap, okay? You look at the market cap, the top 10 highest market cap in the world. In fact, you look at these, seven, one, two, three, four, five, seven out of those are tech platforms. So again, what is the magic behind why their market cap is higher than those 100, 200 years old companies? It's not utility, it's not financial services, right? So what's the magic behind it? And in fact, you look at the right-hand side here, Target, Marriott, and Blockbuster. In fact, they are one of those is already gone. Blockbuster is not existing anymore in the world. Marriott and Target, they're still here, but they're undergoing a tough disruption, okay, from these guys. We talk about Airbnb, we talk about, Walmart is being disrupted by Amazon and Alibaba. So all these companies, again, they are not physically present. They do not have the heavy asset. The only thing they have is their innovation and also data, right? So if you look at these again, in the digital economy, what it really value is not heavy asset. You look at the 30 years ago, GE, GM, all these companies are the biggest company in the world. But look at today, all these companies like I just talked about the tech platforms, whether it's Airbnb, whether it's Alphabet, Google, whether it's Alibaba, they're all asset light. That means they can scale faster. They can be much lower in terms of cost, but more importantly, they're making use of data to understand customer and then to have a very good customer experience. That really matters, right? It's not just because the heavy asset and the light asset comparison. It's also the culture, innovation culture, the data culture, the data capability of this light asset business. So that really counts. So you as an API expert is very important component in this platform and also the data economy. So some of the companies still benchmark themselves with their rightful competitors in the same industry. For example, supermarket, automobile maker, automaker, and all that compared to your own industry. But in the digital economy, it's not good enough because we look at all these four disruptors we talk about. Most of them are not in your same industry. They are tackling, they are going into your market and stealing your breakfast, lunch, and then dinner, and then you are gone. So we need to benchmark with not only your own industry rivals, but also you need to look at benchmark with the tech platforms. For example, in DBS, they call itself as a Gandalf to make sure that everyone in DBS know that they're not benchmarking with ICBC or Citibank. They're benchmarked with all these platforms. So we look at the central one, D. The D in the middle is DBS, and the other is GAN and Apple, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So by benchmark with all these tech platforms, they are doing a serious digital transformation. So they make everybody is a digital citizen. Data citizen. So everybody is literate around data, to speak data, right? And also, of course, customer centric, taking risks like just like a startup, agile. Patrick will talk about. So if they do not benchmark themselves with this tech platform, only benchmark with the banks, for example, they are not going to do a successful digital transformation. They might feel good for a period of time, but they are not going to compete competitive enough to compete with these tech giants. So that's about platform economy, right? Why is a killer business model in this digital economy? The second thing, maybe you will ask me, what is a platform? To a technical guy like you might think that is a technical platform. Maybe it's an infrastructure, okay? But when we talk about platform in the platform economy, we are seeing it as a business model, right? Of course, there's a lot of underlying technologies to support it. For example, data, for example, API. But more importantly, why it makes sense in our business world, right? So what is a platform? A platform is very fundamentally, it creates values different from our existing model. In our existing model, we have the upper stream with the lower stream. You have the manufacturers, and then you have a distributor, you have company to sell like a retailer. So it's a horizontal, linear, adding value from manufacturer, research, manufacturer, and then you have the channel to sell, and then the customer receive the product. So every step we are adding value to it. This is the value chain for the last 100 years. But the genius guy really reinvent the value chain. So this is the platform. So rather than from a linear, we can create value from 360 degrees. That means we have a platform, we have different suppliers of goods and services, we have customers, they have different demands. So how we can put them all together in a platform? So we create values from 360 degrees to satisfy the needs of our customer, the demands. So it's very different. So you have to understand this is a new way to create values for customers. That is what they want. They was what they're expecting, because all these major platforms, they already help all these customers to experience what kind of services they can get from a platform. So if you're a product company, when you need to compete with a platform company, that's why you are losing, just like we have example before, right? Because you are not creating enough values for your customer. But in your platform, it can create values, for example, Amazon and Alibaba. So they can get all these values from different service provider or products provider through the platform and then offer it to the demand. It's not just a e-commerce or middleman, because when you can make use of the data, you can value add. For example, you can have a recommendation engine, right, using AI to recommend the right product and service to the right customer at the right time, right? So those are the things. It's not just a middleman, just like we used to have a reseller, right? Platform is not a reseller, right? Platform is a very powerful business model, put it this way, right? To move on. So sometimes we call it a multi-sided effect, because we have customer on one side and we have multiple providers on the other side. The platform are doing the value added thing, like for example, we talk about the product recommendation, governance, all this kind of thing is the value added. So it's not a pure reseller we talk about. One of the terms we call it network effect is when more people on the right hand side, for example, you have more customers on the platform, so more service providers are willing to come to the platform because they can get more business. When you have more suppliers on the platform, that means you have more choices. It will attract a lot more people to come to the platform, right? So that's what we call a network effect. So No product company, no old style reseller can achieve this kind of network effect. So a platform, why is a killer business model? Is mostly is the network effect and also data. So you look at these, right? You have a bunch of producers, of products and services. You have the consumer. You have the unmet need. You have pain points. You want to be, you need helps, right? So platform is a way to create all these values and satisfy the demands. So from the left hand side is the product, pure product company, and the right hand side is the platform we just talk about. Typically Airbnb and Uber, Alibaba, and Tencent, right? But there's something called in the middle. You don't have to be a pure platform. You can have some product yourself, but also you could be a platform. So this is what we call a hybrid platform. So, for example, Apple, Samsung, and even Adobe, all these kind of company, they are a hybrid platform. That means they do have their own product, but they also can have a platform to collaborate with a lot of other services and product providers and satisfy the need of their customers. All right. So let's move on. Go a little bit faster. So it's all about open innovation and collaboration. This guy, if you're old enough, you know that he's the founder of Netscape, bring every one of us into the internet world. So now he's a professional, successful investor. All this company you look at is invested by him. So he's a billionaire. But how he see platform? A platform is a system that can adapt to countless needs and niches that the platform original developers could not possibly have contaminated. Right. So this is something, this is very, very good code. So Apple and Google are typical platform as well. So they're not only selling Google in terms of Android, they do not have their own product. So it's a pure platform. In terms of Apple iOS, it's a hybrid platform. They do have their own product like iPhone, but they also accommodate all these developers for like apps, right? All these telecom companies, for example. And sharing economies are a very good example, successful example of platforms. So all you see start from Uber, Didi, and then go to and Grab and all that. Okay, so the third part is data, right? So we talk about how platform make it in terms of financial return and what is a platform. It's not a reseller. It is a take data, is API, and also it's network effect. So this is a what platform really differentiate themselves from all other business models. So what is the role of data there? The data is actually the secret source of successful platforms. Let's take a look. So when we talk about Alibaba, it's a platform. So they also integrate their own data and also the ecosystem data. So all these kind of things, they can create something like Ungroup. Okay, we talk about the largest fintech company in the world, put it this way. So Alibaba and the Sesame Score and all these financial data products created from connecting the dots in their ecosystems. So when we talk about Airbnb, the market cap of Airbnb actually is over $100 billion. How big it is actually bigger than the sum of all these hotel chains, right? So how do they make it? Data, right? This kind of platform do not have a single hotel room, but how they can have 100 billion US dollar valuation is all about data, right? So they train everyone in the company using data and to make sure that they make use of data to do what? To understand their customer. Data is their customer voice. And then you look at Hong Kong, right? You talk about HSBC, for example. Of course, virtual bank is very innovative. How will the traditional bank to respond? For example, HSBC, when you opened up a SME bank account, they already connect you to quite a lot of different startup solutions using API, of course, like Zero. And then they also open APIs. Patrick is actually very a good support for that contributor to this program as well. So it's Science Park and HSBC. So HSBC have a whole bunch of API. So let the startup to make use of it to create values for the customers. Most recently, HSBC also worked with Hong Kong TV Mall, one of the largest e-commerce platforms in Hong Kong. They have lots of data. By connecting the data from HSBC and Hong Kong TV Mall, they can come up with a credit score from SMEs. So they can loan money to the SMEs much more effective than before. And DBS, as you know, they are one of the pioneers to make use of API to provide banking as a service. So all these third-party apps, they can actually integrate embedded all these financial services into their apps. So every one of their customers, they can enjoy it and have a much better customer journey. And the secret source of data in the platform, what we call is the virtuous cycle of data. So say, for example, the first time I see you, I won't tell you too much, right? But if you offer me something I like, next time I see you, I will share with you more about myself. In the data platform, in the platform, we talk about the same thing. When you're using data to have a much better product recommendation, for example, selection for your customers, search, right? So they will trust you more, they will share more data with you. When you have more data, you can actually serve the customer better. So this cycle is getting up. So this is unbeatable. So you know more, and then they share more, and you know even more, and they share even more. So this is the virtuous cycle we talk about, a platform. So now you understand platform is not just a tech platform. It's not just a reseller, another types of reseller. So it's so powerful to make use of data and API. So you can make use of data to really create more and more models, like the data platform we talk about. Within the company, you usually use data for analytics, insight, optimization. But if you migrate, for example, Patrick talked about some of the banks also looking at the platform. So you're migrating to a platform, what we call the business metamorphosis. Previously, you're selling products, or you're a typical old style reseller. Now you can make use of API, data, and network effect to become a data platform. So Citibank, for example, they are making use everyone in the company to be a citizen data scientist in order to make themselves transition themselves into a platform, right? And same as DBS and also Hang Seng Bank, right? They're upskilling their staff to be data literate. Everybody can speak data, so they can helping them to transform not just a product company, but also a platform company, right? My last part is what's next. So if you are in this business or you're helping company to migrate to platform, what's next, right? But we need to look further down. Platform already disrupt all these traditional leaders, right? We talk about, but what's next? Metaverse is next. Metaverse is an advanced version of platforms. Okay, so advanced version of platforms. So we need to all these platforms we talk about very successful one today. They need to migrate themselves to a new version of platform. It's a metaverse. So all these guys like Decentraland, Sandbox, Roblox, even Nike is going to this way. So they're not just for games, they're not just for NFT speculation. It's really a platform I see. It's a new generation of platform. So how we can migrate into that is a very, very important strategy in the next 5 years. So metaverse, if you don't know how big it is, by 2030 actually is 5 trillion US dollars, according to McKinsey, by 2030. Right? So we're migrating to this generation. I know time is almost done. I'll give you this. What's next for Nike innovation? So they're already into something called Nike Land. And LeBron James, you like NBA. If you don't like NBA, you still like it because the NFT of LeBron James, just one dunk, is over 200K US dollars. right? So what's your next platform strategy? So that's something I leave it to you. All right, thank you, Patrick. I pass it back to you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. To Cham. So, yeah, unluckily we don't have enough time for the Q&A. Maybe I will reach you out to understand more. And then if any of the audience want to know more about the concept behind, feel free to reach Dr. Cham out, or also we can also help to line up. So once again, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, for the next keynote, we are glad to have Maddie, the founder of the API Days Global Conference. He will be talking about the API landscape from a global perspective. Okay, Maddie, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you, Patrick. Hello, everyone.
Okay, yeah. Your voice is also loud and clear. So I can see your screen is also okay. So I pass the stage to you first. Thank you.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. So yeah, great presentation by Dr. Charm. And actually, if you want to understand how APIs are part of this platform economy, this presentation is for you. And we will also discover the API industry landscape at all, how you will manage your API supply chain, in a sense, to be able to reach platform and ecosystem business models. So a little bit about me. I'm the founder and chairman of Apidays conferences. I've been running these conferences over the last 10 years. You can follow me on Twitter at Medjawii, MEDJAWII. And you can also check my latest publications. So a book about continuous API management, published by O'Reilly, this second edition. I also published 2 reports where I'm a co-author on application programming interface for governments. It's a European Commission report, or a report on GDPR data portability, like how you can make data portability without APIs according to data protection regulations. But today we're talking about the state of the API industry 2022. So it's a report we publish every year based on 1,000 companies. So you can just download it on apidays.global/industry-reports. So again, I will share the link after the presentation again, but the report with all the insights, you can have complete access for free on our website. And again, you can also check live the landscape. So if you go on apilandscape.apiscene.io, you will be able to browse the landscape I'm talking about, interact with it, click on different companies, search into companies in the API space, and yes, for now or for later. But again, everything we do is accessible openly, and you will be able to access this data when you will need to understand the industry. So the summary of the presentation, we will talk about a few topics. We will talk about the API mindset and how to understand the API landscape for the next 10 years. We will see about how regulation are enforcing the publishing and the use of APIs and why it affects the landscape actually on different sectors. The sector will be banking, healthcare, supply chain, insurance, and others. We will check also about API security and privacy, because it's a new category in the landscape with a new series of products. We will discover why. We will see also that APIs are also a new business layer of infrastructure with new API as a product model, and that are part of what we call the new technical stack. And we'll finish by a new trend that we see in large companies and even smaller companies, enabled by APIs, the no-code, low-code approach, and the citizen developers aspect. So this is what we will talk about, everything around the landscape of the 1,000 tools that compose the API industry. So for the next 10 years, let's have a look about how you need to be prepared for the landscape. So the first, I will give you 4 advice before we dive into the data. The first advice is an API is as much exposing capabilities as hiding complexity. Just imagine when you go to a restaurant and you check at the menu, you don't want to know everything that's available in the kitchen. You don't want to know every recipe the cook can cook. You want to see a selection that has been designed for you for a dining experience. So an API is like the menu of a restaurant. It's a selection of what the kitchen wants to expose, right? Versus what it wants to hide. You don't want to show complexity. You don't want to show too many choices to a user. You want to see a selection of what he can order, what he can get from your kitchen, so from your backend as a company. So it's extremely important to understand that there is a design approach. Of course, there's the platform economy, but when you design an API, you design a way to consume and use your data, right? And that's a projection for your user. So you shape your platform in a sense. I love this advertisement of Lego because this is for me the perfect representation. We build building bricks, which are neutral. It's a technology brick, a payment API, SMS API, whatever, weather the data API and services. But people will see the shadow of it. When I build the weather API, maybe someone will build an insurance on top of it, because you can insure small businesses about the weather. If it's sunny tomorrow, ice cream shops will sell more, or if it's less sunny, ice cream shop will sell less. So you can even have different business models with the same data. So again, an API is as much exposing as much as hiding capabilities, right? Always remember, your user, you build a brick, but user will see a shadow of the brick and will consume it that way. The second advice I want to share is that embedded is a lot more superior than open. We've talked about open banking or opening APIs. Of course, you can open APIs to your ecosystem, but the goal is not just to be open. The goal is not to leave assets on the table. The goal is to be embedded. The goal is to include your assets into the customer experience of others, so you can reach their channels. There is a famous saying in the API industry, like say in the 2000s, you needed a website to be digital. In the 2010s, you needed a mobile application to embrace mobile channels. But in the 2020s, you need APIs to be in everybody else's website and in everybody else's mobile application. So now there is a horizontal colonization. And that's really the goal of being embedded, not just open. That's the idea of, if I cannot reach all the channels of a community, I will embed my capabilities into the channels of people who are reaching these communities, and then I will be able to reach them all. So you can see it as a really large distribution channel in the digital world. The third advice I want to share is that reuse is a lot more important than use, a lot more difficult. Consuming something as a customer is easy sometimes, but let's say reusing to generate value for someone else is extremely hard. And this is what happened with APIs. You will give access to someone who will not directly consume it for himself. He will consume it to build something for someone else. So there is a different step. And so you have to engage them into delivering value, right? It's extremely hard if they're not just consuming the value, they are adding value to what you're building. So there is often a saying, we say that developer experience is the first path to customer experience. So when you open APIs, you open APIs to developers in your partner's ecosystem that will have to understand how to deliver customer experiences on their side. So your developer experiences on your APIs is the start of the final customer experiences of the end user. But it's really hard to make other people use something. And this is how we've represented it here. So your API has an intrinsic value, but if the developer experience is too big to integrate it, like there is an integration overhead compared to the value, the integration does not happen, right? So you have to make, depending on the value of the capability you provide by APIs, you have to make a developer experience effort that is lower in terms of cost versus the value. So there is the potential of API integration, and then integration happens. So you always have to understand that I have interesting value, but if I make it too difficult to use, nobody will use it. I have to make it easier to use below this value level so people can integrate it. So it's a little bit like a supply chain, like the build versus buy. Over the last 100 years, supply chain industry has been doing that. Like, do I outsource because it's easier to outsource, or if it's too costly to outsource, I will build it myself. It's the exact same decision, but now at large scale with APIs. And so what I was saying about distribution channels, so this is an example of classic distribution channels like web, mobile, partner integrations, connected device, e-commerce integrations, whatever, supplier, ERP integrations. But now we can see what we call the long tail. So the long tail is most of the time really hard to address because you have diminishing returns. Every new channel is potentially smaller than the previous one. But the thing is, if you are able to address them all, sometime what may happen is that all third long tail channels cumulated can be actually larger and bigger than your main channels. And this is why APIs comes to the game. They are able to orchestrate these smaller channels, but they're smaller. Each of them is smaller, but accumulated, if you're able to orchestrate them as a platform, you can accumulate a lot more value. So let's remind that. And the last point before diving into the data is that don't think what the best business model for APIs, but what are the best APIs for your business model. I've seen an example of a bank who are trying to monetize APIs directly, and actually they shifted strategy because they found that having free and open APIs for a large ecosystem and marketplace was enabling them to have a lot of applications on their platform. And so people were signing up more to their banks versus another bank. So actually, APIs enable them to have the same business model, but at larger scale. The same business model of signing up people for account and mortgage and everything. So same business model, but enabled and scaled by an API ecosystem that enable a lot of applications. So sometimes monetizing APIs directly is not the best strategy. The best strategy is sometimes to keep the same business model, but scale by API strategy. And this is what Marshall van Alstyne, he's a researcher at Boston University and MIT, also co-author of the book Platform Revolution, has demonstrated in a paper. In this research, he found that companies who have B2B APIs, right, it's a study on 10 years, right, are able to have, I don't know if you can see it here, but 66% more of revenue in average versus the other, and a net income of 38% higher than the others, right? So just to tell you, that actually it has been a success for many companies who have embraced APIs. And again, it's a study on hundreds of companies over 10 years, so it's not just a sample of questions. The drawback is that, of course, with APIs you have new risks like data breach risk or whatever. So companies who have open APIs are likely to have more data breaches. So again, this is the drawback of being open and embedded. And you can see the relative to API adoption. So again, it's a little bit an economist graph, but let's say this is the comparison between companies who have of the same sector when they have opened APIs and embraced API strategy to their market versus others. So you can see there is a direct shift of value when companies have adopted and embraced API strategy versus the when they don't. So that's extremely important to consider. Like, yeah, there is a direct shift of value when an API strategy is embraced or not. And how we explain that, and again, I love it. So it's of course it's how we can revert the firm. The idea is that you have more people, more experts, more value outside the company than inside. So with APIs, you will be able to collect this value and accumulate on your platform, right? So just imagine if you want to scale your company, right? You have people and software, and you can be internal or external, right? So that's what you can see on the graph. So internal people are what we call employees, right? So that's the idea. This is the old model of building companies. But now, if you open your companies to external people, this is what we call the crowdsourcing, or using the crowd, or community-driven development. So that's, again, how you can scale the people. But if you have internal software that can work, so this is what we call software, algorithm, whatever. But if you want external scalability with software, right? So that's really the idea of scalability. This is where APIs come. So you can imagine as APIs are your external software capabilities to scale your companies, right? So I love this summarization that Marshall has shared with us in another talk. So let's dive into the data of the landscape. So after these 4 advice, I think you're ready to understand the landscape. Again, so the landscape is accessible on apilandscape.apiscene.io, and it's the 1,100 tools that compose the API industry, right? All the tools you will need to develop, build, design, document, test, deploy, manage, and secure APIs, right? There. So again, it can remind you the supply chain, right? Like many tools for being up, and so that you can pick and choose for your delivering value. And actually, the landscape is composed into 5 sections. We have the first, which is the API lifecycle platforms. The second one is the backend building tools, right? Backend that enables you tools that enable you to build backends. The third one is the API as a product, or business process as a service. It's a sample of APIs which are just, or of product which are just APIs, and that are gathering a full business process in just one interface. The fourth one is the integration platform as a service, like how you can integrate different APIs on the same side. And the last one is the vertical API abstractions and API aggregators, like how you can maybe integrate 100 banks into just one API. So that's really the different part of the API industry lifecycle. All of this, so it's Crunchbase data, but all of this represent today a $174 billion industry, mostly managed by API lifecycle platforms. We've seen a lot of acquisition. You will see that later. And the second one is really the business process as a service, like, all these small business processes that are being like now gathered into a product by APIs, and that are enabling to deliver new products. So what trends we can identify, right? The goal of this keynote is to share you these trends and takeaways we can get from the landscape. So the first one is that API management has become a commodity, leading to new open source growth. We can see that. So again, API management is still a growing industry, like with a 27% compound annual growth rate. So it's still working well. Many sponsors of API Days are actually of the API management space. But again, over time, it has become a community, and because of a lot of acquisition. So we've seen Broadcom, Google, IBM, Axway, Salesforce, Cheapcode, Talent, Oracle, Microsoft, Perforce acquiring different startups and products over time. So let's say many software vendors have their own capabilities. So now it's kind of a commodity that enable open source opportunities. So you can see top open source companies like Kong, Gravity, Nginx, Solo, Tyke, WSO2, or Red Hat 3Scale. And that, this is why it was a community that now there was the opportunity to make it open source. And you can see these open source companies are really trending, and that helped also a lot of adoption. So this is the first one we see, communitization, and new open source growth that also put API management more affordable to everyone. The second, another trend, the first trend we actually see is that because of this, of this API mindset, we see an explosion of tech regulation set to impact the API industry. So one of the first was in banking in Europe, like the Payment Service Directive 2. In Hong Kong, you have the Open API framework, and you have many regulations worldwide actually on banking that oblige companies to have APIs, right? They oblige companies to upload and publish APIs. So that's really a huge driver for adoption, and we can see this trend that will not stop, because it's not only banking, it's also healthcare. So with the HL7 and FHIR standard in the US, in Europe, or in Asia, many countries have now regulation obliging companies to open APIs in the healthcare industry. And it's not all healthcare, everything about personal data. For example, the GDPR or many other regulation obliging to manage data better, give data back to users, or enabling data portability, are obliging to open APIs also. So we can see that there's a lot of things there, and just in Europe or US or Brazil recently, some regulations are obliging to open APIs. One interesting is in Brazil, like it was for insurance. It was a regulation obliging insurance to open APIs. So again, another industry obliged to open APIs by regulation. The second trend is that because of this regulation, mainly, we see now industry-specific solutions. We see, so in the landscape, you will be able to see we have specific banking or finance or insurance dedicated section again. So because of that, we see direct specific solution for specific industries. And I also I call also for you to know the Open Insurance Initiative. So it's just a group of insurers who wants to set API standard for insurance. Again, because they understand that there may be regulation worldwide on the topic. Just an example of few things, like WSO2, an open source API management solution, received funding from Goldman Sachs, right? To build finance-specific API management. You can see other companies like Orsinsidia in Brazil, just for product for open insurance. So exactly what we're saying, new type of products for specific industries. The third trend we actually see is that API security is now a standalone product, right? And privacy is now the next differentiation maker. So over the last 7 years, you've maybe heard of the DevSecOps approach, like how we can have security checked earlier, but now APIs are definitely part of it, because before we publish an API, we have to check security earlier. And this is what VentureBeat called our API security arms race heating up. So Now there are new threats, especially because of COVID. A lot of companies have put things online without really checking security. So now we have many endpoints, many what they call rogue APIs or shadow APIs that are not secured. And so it seems that current products are lagging and because of the new threats. So we can see some recent company like Traceable, No Name, 42 Crunch, Whip Security, Salt Security. All of them, they raised in total more than $300 million just in the last year to build a next generation of API security products. So that's really a new trend, and we can see that pure player into API security. And you can see that this is a Salt Security report, but again, like we can see one of the most important things is about the sensitive data exposure. So again, that's more than almost 30% of companies consider that after vulnerability, sensitive data exposure is the most important. And again, this is where privacy comes into the game of the next generation of API products. The trend number 4 is that APIs are a new layer of business in tech infrastructure. I love this quote from the founder and CEO of Twilio. The world is getting broken down into APIs. Every part of the stack of business that a developer might need to build is eventually turning into APIs that developer can use. And this is, again, the same idea of the supply chain, right? Everyone will specialize into a small part of a product that someone will be able to assemble later. So again, in the landscape, we have almost 400 tools on payment, telecommunication. We have invoice APIs. We have accounting APIs. We have like forms APIs, like many others. Again, that are just one business process, one part of the value of a large business, but actually orchestrated all together that can compose a business more easily with specialized products. So that's really the idea. And compared to SaaS, these API products are a lot more customizable, and you can build your own UI on top of it versus being imposed the UI by others. So some companies have been extremely successful on this, like Stripe, Twilio, Adyen, Plaid, and Grid, Avalara, like just pure API product. But if your piece of infrastructure is used by everyone else, you are achieving large scale, right? So you are a specialist for payment or telecommunication. Just imagine like when you build tires for the whole car industry, like Goodyear or Michelin or others, like they're just one part of the stack, but they sell it to everyone. And again, because of that, we have a new open source standard like Open API Initiative, Open API Specification, Async API, gRPC, GraphQL, JSON Schema. So we have also a new stack of open standards that are enabling also to make this like digital API infrastructure more open and also more scalable. So we have the business on top, the tools, but also the standards. Last but not least, the trend number 5 is really the low-code approach, as we said. So it's tools you may know, like Zapier, Retool, or AppSheet. It's tools to enable what we call citizen developers to build applications. APIs are made for developers, but not everyone in a company is a developer. But they may need to use the APIs to be able to mix them, orchestrate them, or build smart applications. And so we see this low-code approach, right, that is really booming. Just an example, in the US recently, there was a no-code day, right, to celebrate no-code. And we can see like now large companies are training their employees to be no-coder, like in a 3-month program to know how to build and compose APIs with tools that enable it to make it easier. And so like this, they're able to mix and make like small business applications, like, with, for example, Google Sheets and CRM and forms to be able to do marketing small widgets without the need of developers. So that's a huge trend coming. And again, all powered by APIs behind the scenes. So when you will build APIs, think also about the citizen developers, how you can make your APIs so easy to use and integrate with others that people will be able to play with it with drag and drop or really simple interfaces. So that was it. Again, as a reminder, API management market is growing fast, but becoming a community, creating a lot of open source communities. Regulation enforcing and publishing the use of APIs are creating new opportunities in different industries that leads to specialization in API management in industry like banking, healthcare, supply chain, or insurance. Because of rapid post-COVID digitalization, API security is now a standalone market with standalone products on top of API management. So you will see a lot of API security vendors trying to be on top of your API management solutions. APIs are definitely a new business infrastructure for a new technical stack, right? So every product, every business process will be an API at some point. And last but not least, don't forget citizen developers when you build APIs, because they may be the next generation of your users, especially if you're really in a business-driven environment. Thank you very much. And again, you can see more details on API landscape at APIscene.io. Thank you, Patrick, for having me.
Okay, thanks, Maddie. You got a perfect timing. So yeah, we don't have any time left for the Q&A, but it's a very fruitful and complete sharing. So if you are interested, feel free to go to the website to download the report, and also can reach out to the team to understand better. So once again, thanks, Maddie, and thanks for our support to API Days Hong Kong. Okay.
Thank you, Patrick. Good luck for everything. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we are now finishing our morning keynote sections. So you can come back at around 10:55 for the next sections. So next segment. So we basically have two tracks. One, we will go to the data-driven API practice. So we will talk about data and API. And then in the second track, we will be the API first challenge, including how to do the event-driven architecture, API security, and penetration testing, etc. So if you have some time, you can also spend your time to go to the Pala village and then try to experience how our Pala is doing, and then try your best to pay around the treasure hunt. So this is only for the live, for the people joining live. So it will not be continued after the event. So take your times. Okay, so once again, thanks for joining, and come back at 10:55. Thank you. See you soon.